About to sign the divorce, she asked for one last night of love and discovered the shocking truth. The setting sun cast long shadows across Benjamin Walsh's office, painting Manhattan's skyline in hues of amber and gold. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection a ghostly outline against the glass, straightening his tie for what felt like the 100th time that evening. The divorce papers lay on his desk, their presence as heavy as the secret he'd carried for the past 18 months. A gentle knock at the door made him turn, and there she was, Anna Richardson, his wife, for 8 more hours. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a deep burgundy dress that complemented her dark skin, her natural curls falling softly around her face. Even now, after everything, the sight of her made his heart skip a beat. "You're early," he said, his voice softer than he intended. Anna's lips curved into a slight smile as she stepped into the office. "Actually, you're late. Our reservation was for 7. She moved with the same grace that had first caught his attention at that courthouse cafe 8 years ago. "But then again, you've always lost track of time when you're working." Benjamin glanced at his watch, 7:22 p.m. She was right, of course. She usually was about these things. "I'm sorry, I was just—" He gestured vaguely at the papers on his desk, unable to finish the sentence. "Preparing for tomorrow?" Anna's voice carried no accusation, just a gentle understanding that made everything worse. She crossed the room, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and stopped at his desk. Her fingers traced the edge of the divorce papers, but she didn't look at them. Instead, her eyes found his, and for a moment, Benjamin saw a flash of the same uncertainty he felt. "We could have signed these anywhere," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It didn't have to be at your office. I thought it would be easier." The lie tasted bitter on his tongue. He'd chosen his office because it was safe, controlled. Because here he could hide behind his professional facade when they finally ended their marriage. What he hadn't counted on was Anna showing up tonight, unannounced, looking like everything he was about to lose. She moved closer, close enough that he caught the familiar scent of her jasmine perfume. "Nothing about this is easy, Ben." She reached up, adjusting his slightly crooked tie with practiced fingers. The casual intimacy of the gesture made his chest tighten. "That's actually why I'm here." Benjamin held his breath, acutely aware of her proximity, of the warmth of her hands through his shirt. The cancer diagnosis paper burned in his desk drawer, a constant reminder of why he had to let her go. "Anna, I want to ask you something," she interrupted, taking a step back. Her eyes held a determination he recognized from their early days together, when she'd fight for pro bono cases with a passion that had made him fall in love with her. "And I need you to hear me out before you answer." He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The setting sun caught the small diamond studs in her ears, the ones he'd given her on their first anniversary. She still wore them even now. "Instead of going straight to tomorrow's signing," Anna began, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands, "I want us to have one last night together. No lawyers, no papers, no grievances. Just us, remembering who we were before everything fell apart." Benjamin felt the floor shift beneath his feet. Of all the things he'd expected her to say, this wasn't one of them. "You want one night," she repeated, more firmly this time. "To say goodbye properly. To remember the good parts. To be honest about the bad ones. To make love one last time, if we both want to." She paused, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "I don't want our last memory together to be signing papers in a cold office. We deserve better than that. We were better than that." The words "were better" hit him like a physical blow. He turned back to the window, trying to gather his thoughts. The city lights were coming alive now, twinkling like stars against the deepening twilight. Behind him, he heard Anna's soft breathing, patient yet expectant. How could he tell her that one night wouldn't be enough, that every moment with her was both a gift and a torture, knowing what he was hiding? The medical file in his drawer contained words like aggressive and terminal, words he'd never shared with her, because he couldn't bear to see the pain in her eyes. He'd pushed her away instead, becoming distant and cold, making her believe he'd fallen out of love. But now she stood in his office, offering one last night of truth, except she didn't know what truth really meant. "Ben?" Her voice pulled him back from his thoughts. "I know it's an unusual request, but yes." The word escaped before he could stop it. He turned to face her, knowing this could be the biggest mistake of his life, or perhaps his last chance at redemption. "Yes, I'll give you this night." Anna's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected him to agree so readily. "Really?" "On one condition," he added, his heart pounding, "complete honesty. If we're doing this, we tell each other everything, no holding back." A slow smile spread across her face, beautiful and sad at the same time. "Everything?" Benjamin nodded, even as his throat tightened with fear. "Everything." Anna extended her hand, an echo of the thousands of contracts they'd both handled in their legal careers. "Deal." He took her hand, her skin warm against his palm. As their fingers intertwined, Benjamin realized that this night would change everything. By tomorrow morning, Anna would know about his diagnosis, about why he'd really pushed her away. She would either hate him more for his deception, or he couldn't let himself hope for the or. "Where do we start?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Anna's grip on his hand tightened slightly. "First, we leave this office and these papers behind. Then—" She looked up at him with those deep brown eyes that had always seen straight through his defenses. "Then we remember how to be us again, even if it's just for one night." As Benjamin followed her out of the office, leaving the divorce papers unsigned on his desk, he felt both terror and relief. In less than 24 hours, he would either lose her forever or find out if their love was strong enough to survive the truth he'd been hiding. Either way, this would be a night neither of them would forget. Little did Anna know, her request for one last night of honesty would unravel more than just their past. It would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and the power of facing the future together, no matter how uncertain it might be. The elevator descended in silence, each floor bringing them closer to whatever this night would become. Benjamin watched Anna's reflection in the polished doors, noticing how she twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd never quite broken. The same ring he'd slipped onto her finger at the Boston Public Garden, surrounded by spring tulips and possibilities. "Your car or mine?" Anna asked as they reached the lobby, her voice breaking through the quiet. "Neither." Benjamin gestured toward the street. "I thought we could walk. It's only a few blocks to Le Bernardin." He caught her surprised look and added, "Unless you'd prefer somewhere else?" A soft laugh escaped her lips. "You remembered." "That it's where we had our first real date." "Of course." He held the door open for her, letting the warm June evening envelop them. "Though if I recall correctly, you spent the first 20 minutes telling me how pretentious it was. And the next 2 hours admitting I was wrong." Anna stepped onto the sidewalk, falling into easy stride beside him. Their shoulders nearly touched as they navigated through the evening crowd. "I still dream about that chocolate dessert." The memory hung between them, bittersweet and tender. Benjamin remembered every detail of that night, how nervous he'd been, how her laughter had cut through his carefully constructed walls, how she'd gotten chocolate on her chin and he'd wanted so badly to kiss it away. He had eventually, after walking her home. As they approached the restaurant's familiar facade, Anna slowed her steps. "Ben?" Her voice carried a note of hesitation. "Before we go in, I need to know something." He turned to face her, aware of how the streetlights painted golden highlights in her hair. "What is it? Are we really doing this, being completely honest?" She met his gaze steadily. "Because if we're not, if this is just going through the motions, then maybe we should just sign those papers now and be done with it." The weight of his secret pressed against his chest. "I meant what I said upstairs. Complete honesty." He swallowed hard. "But maybe we should start with something easier than dinner." Anna tilted her head, curiosity replacing uncertainty. "What did you have in mind?" "Follow me." He led her past the restaurant, turning down a quieter street. The summer evening had drawn people outdoors, but here the crowd thinned, allowing them to walk closer together. After a few blocks, they reached a small park. More of a garden, really, tucked between buildings like a secret. Recognition dawned on Anna's face. "The Pocket Park. We haven't been here since the night you won your first major case," Benjamin finished. He approached a wooden bench nestled beneath a flowering dogwood tree. "You were so excited you couldn't sit still through dinner. We ended up here at midnight, and you read the entire verdict out loud, complete with voice impressions of the judge." Anna sank onto the bench, her fingers trailing over the weathered wood. "I can't believe you remember that." "I remember everything about us, Anna." The words came out more intensely than he'd intended. He sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "The good and the bad." She turned to study his profile in the dim light. "Then why did you stop sharing those memories with me? When did we become strangers who shared a bed?" The question hit him like a physical blow. He could tell her now, about the first doctor's appointment, about the tests, about the diagnosis that had shattered his world. Instead, he said, "Do you remember what you told me that night, after you finished reading the verdict?" "I told you a lot of things that night. I was high on victory and probably too much champagne. You said that winning didn't matter as much as having someone to share it with." Benjamin stared at his hands, remembering how she'd held them that night, her grip fierce and loving. "That all your life? You'd achieved things alone, celebrated alone, grieved alone. But finally you had someone who understood both your victories and your battles." Anna's breath caught audibly. "Ben, I failed you in that promise, didn't I?" He forced himself to look at her. "Somewhere along the way I stopped being that person for you." "You didn't fail me," she said softly. "You just disappeared. Not physically, but emotionally. It was like watching a door slowly close, and no matter how hard I knocked, you wouldn't let me in." She paused, pain flickering across her features. "The worst part was, you seemed perfectly fine with it. Like you'd decided our marriage wasn't worth fighting for, and I never understood why." Benjamin's throat tightened. If she only knew how wrong she was, how every day had been a battle between protecting her and wanting to tell her everything. How he'd laid awake countless nights, watching her sleep, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the rhythm of her breathing, knowing their time together was slipping away. A warm breeze rustled the dogwood blossoms above them, sending white petals drifting down like snow. One landed in Anna's hair, and without thinking, Benjamin reached out to brush it away. His fingers grazed her temple, and she leaned ever so slightly into his touch. "I miss you," she whispered, the words barely audible. "Not just now, but even when we were together. I missed the man who would spend hours discussing cases with me, who knew exactly when I needed to vent and when I needed solutions. The man who understood that sometimes silence was the best comfort." Her eyes glistened in the dim light. "What happened to him, Ben?" The truth pressed against his lips, demanding to be spoken. But here, in this place filled with memories of their happier days, he couldn't bring himself to shatter the moment. Not yet. Instead, he said, "He lost his way. But maybe tonight he can find it again." Anna studied him for a long moment, as if trying to read the thoughts behind his words. Finally, she stood, smoothing her dress with slightly trembling hands. "Then let's start with dinner. Real dinner at Le Bernardin, where you can tell me what's really going on in that head of yours." Benjamin rose to join her, knowing that each step toward the restaurant was a step closer to the truth he'd have to reveal. But for now, watching her walk beside him in the gentle evening light, he allowed himself to remember how it felt to simply love her, without the weight of his diagnosis between them. As they retraced their steps to the restaurant, the city seemed to pulse with possibility. Groups of friends spilled out of bars, couples walked hand in hand, and somewhere in the distance, a street musician played a melody that felt both melancholic and hopeful. Just like this night, Benjamin thought, just like their love story. The maitre d' greeted them with professional warmth, leading them to a quiet corner table that overlooked the restaurant's elegant interior. As Anna settled into her chair, the candlelight softened her features, taking Benjamin back to countless dinners they'd shared here, celebrations, anniversaries, or sometimes just because they wanted to feel special. "Still want the chocolate? Dessert?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light. Anna's smile held a trace of their old intimacy. Let's see if we make it that far this time. The implied weight of her words hung between them as they ordered wine. Both knew that somewhere between the appetizer and dessert, everything would change. The truth would come out, piece by piece, until there was nowhere left to hide. Benjamin raised his water glass slightly. To honesty? Anna lifted her own glass, the crystal catching the candlelight. To remembering who we were, she countered, and maybe understanding who we've become. As their glasses clinked together, Benjamin saw the same mix of hope and fear in her eyes that he felt in his heart. The night stretched before them, full of possibilities and revelations, and he silently prayed that when the truth finally emerged, their love would be strong enough to survive it. Le Bernardin's soft lighting cast intimate shadows across their corner table as the sommelier poured a deep red Bordeaux into Anna's glass. Benjamin watched the practiced ritual, grateful for these few moments to collect his thoughts. His wife's perfume mingled with the rich aromas of the restaurant, creating an atmosphere both familiar and strange. "You're doing it again," Anna said, breaking his reverie. "Doing what? That thing with your watch?" She nodded toward his hands, where he'd been unconsciously adjusting his timepiece. "You always fidget with it when you're nervous. Started during your first big trial, remember?" Benjamin stilled his hands, caught off guard by her observation. Even now, after months of emotional distance, she could read him like a well-worn legal brief. "The Carlton case," he said softly. "You noticed that?" "I noticed everything about you, Ben." Anna took a sip of her wine, her dark eyes holding his over the rim of the glass. "That's what made the last year so hard. Watching you change, watching. You pull away and not understanding why." The waiter appeared with their appetizers, seared scallops for her, tuna tartare for him. The same orders they'd always chosen, a detail that didn't escape either of them. "Tell me something," Anna continued, placing her napkin in her lap with deliberate care. "Was there someone else?" Benjamin nearly choked on his wine. "What?" "No, God, no, Anna." "Then what?" She set down her fork, leaving the perfectly seared scallop untouched. "Because I've played every scenario in my head, analyzed every possible reason, and nothing makes sense. The man I married, the man who used to look at me like I hung the moon, he wouldn't just stop loving me without a reason." "I never stopped—" Benjamin caught himself, the words dying in his throat. He couldn't say it, not yet. Not until she knew everything. "Never stopped what?" Anna leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Finish that sentence, Ben. Please?" The restaurant's ambient noise faded away, leaving only the sound of his heartbeat thundering in his ears. A memory flashed through his mind, the day of his diagnosis, sitting alone in Dr. Chen's office, staring at scan results that looked like abstract art, but spelled out his future in stark medical terms. "Do you remember the Morrison wedding?" he asked instead, buying time. Anna blinked at the apparent non sequitur. "Of course, last October you left early, said you had a migraine. I didn't go home. The confession felt like stepping off a cliff. I went to Memorial Sloan Kettering." The color drained from Anna's face. "The cancer center? Ben, what are you—" "I'd been having headaches for weeks, dizziness, things I tried to hide because I didn't want to worry you." He forced himself to meet her gaze. "That night I had an episode, nearly passed out in the bathroom. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore." Anna's hands gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white against the pristine tablecloth. "Why didn't you tell me? I could have gone with you." "Because you'd already lost so much." Benjamin's voice cracked slightly. "Your parents, your brother. I saw what those losses did to you. How hard you fought to build yourself back up. I couldn't—" "Don't." Anna's voice was sharp enough to draw glances from nearby tables. She lowered her volume, but not her intensity. "Don't you dare make this about protecting me. You took away my choice, Ben. You decided for both of us." "I know." He reached for his water glass, his throat suddenly dry. "But by the time I understood how wrong I was, it felt too late. You were already pulling away, building walls of your own. Because you pushed me there." The words burst from her like a dam breaking. "Do you know what it's like to watch your husband disappear into himself? To feel him flinch when you touch him? To lie awake at night wondering what you did wrong? What changed? Why the person who promised to share everything suddenly shares nothing? Tears glistened in her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely, a skill she'd perfected in courtrooms, refusing to let opposing counsel see her vulnerability. But here, with him, the control was slipping. The headaches, she continued, her voice steadier now, were they the only symptom? Benjamin stared at his untouched tartar. No. Tell me everything, right now. Her tone left no room for evasion. You promised honesty tonight, this is where it starts. He took a deep breath, then began to speak. The initial diagnosis, a grade 3 astrocytoma, aggressive but not immediately terminal. The rounds of treatment he'd hidden behind business trips and late nights at the office. The way he'd structured his cases to allow for recovery time without raising suspicions. Each revelation landed between them like stones in still water, creating ripples that threatened to drown them both. Anna listened without interrupting, her face a masterpiece of controlled emotion. Only her hands, still gripping the table's edge, betrayed her turmoil. The prognosis? She finally asked. Uncertain. Benjamin reached for his wine but didn't drink it. The latest treatment showed promise, but you still decided to divorce me. Anna's voice was eerily calm now. You hid your illness, pushed me away, made me think our marriage had failed naturally. Also, you could what? Die alone? Spare me the inconvenience of being a widow? I wanted you to hate me, he admitted quietly. I thought it would be easier for you to move on if you thought I was just another man who couldn't love you properly. Better that than watching another person you love slip away slowly. The silence that followed was deafening. Around them, other diners continued their meals, laughing and talking, oblivious to the earthquake happening at table 23. Finally, Anna picked up her fork. With precise movements, she cut into her scallop, placed a perfect bite in her mouth and chewed thoughtfully. Benjamin watched, baffled by this sudden shift. After swallowing, she looked up at him, her eyes blazing with an emotion he couldn't quite read. You're an idiot, she said calmly. A well-meaning, noble, absolutely infuriating idiot. Anna, no, my turn. She set her fork down with surgical precision. You decided to protect me by destroying us. You took away my agency, my right to choose, my ability to stand by my husband when he needed me most. All because you thought you knew what was best for me. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to an intense whisper. Did it ever occur to you that maybe, just maybe, I'm stronger than you think? Benjamin felt something crack inside his chest, the wall he'd built to protect them both crumbling under the weight of her words. You're the strongest person I know, he whispered back. That's why I couldn't bear to be your weakness. A single tear escaped, rolling down Anna's cheek. She wiped it away with a quick, angry gesture. You weren't my weakness, Ben. You were my strength. And now? She pushed back her chair abruptly. I need some air. Before he could respond, she was gone, her burgundy dress a flash of color as she wove between tables toward the restaurant's entrance. Benjamin sat frozen, staring at her half-eaten scallop, the truth finally laid bare between them like shattered glass. When their waiter approached, concern evident on his face, Benjamin managed to find his voice. We'll need those entrees. To go. He pulled out his wallet, ignoring the tremor in his hands. And could you point me toward the back exit? He had a feeling he knew exactly where Anna was headed, and this time he wouldn't let her face anything alone. Benjamin found her exactly where he knew he would. At Bryant Park, standing by the stone balustrade where they'd shared their first kiss. The night had grown cooler, and she hugged herself against the chill, her silhouette stark against the city lights. He approached slowly, shrugging off his suit jacket as he walked. You'll catch cold, he said softly, draping the jacket over her shoulders. Anna didn't turn around. Funny how you're worried about a cold when you've been hiding cancer. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the tremor beneath it. I deserve that. You deserve a lot worse. Now she did turn, and the sight of her tears knocked the breath from his lungs. Do you have any idea what you've done? Not just to me, but to us. Benjamin gripped the balustrade, needing its solidity. I thought I was protecting you. By lying? By making me think I wasn't worth fighting for. Anna wiped angrily at her cheeks. God, Ben, do you know how many nights I spent wondering what I did wrong? Replaying every moment, every conversation, trying to figure out when you stopped loving. Me? I never stopped loving you. The words burst from him like a confession. That was the problem. I loved you too much to watch you suffer through this. That wasn't your choice to make. Her voice echoed across the nearly empty park. A few late-night visitors glanced their way, then quickly looked away. You don't get to decide how much I can handle. You don't get to choose when to protect me and when to push me away. She stepped closer, her face illuminated by the park's vintage lampposts. His jacket hung loose on her smaller frame, and something about the sight, her wearing his clothes, just like she used to do on lazy Sunday mornings, made his chest ache. Remember what you said when you proposed? She asked, her voice softer now. Tell me you remember. Anna, tell me. Benjamin closed his eyes, the memory washing over him. I said that love isn't just about the good times. It's about choosing each other every day, especially on the days when choosing feels impossible. And then what did I say? You said, his voice caught, you said that's why you knew we'd last forever, because we never took the easy way out. Anna laughed, a hollow sound that held no joy. Except, that's exactly what you did, isn't it? You took the easy way out. You decided that pushing me away was easier than trusting me with your pain. There was nothing easy about it. Benjamin opened his eyes, forcing himself to face her. Do you think I wanted to watch you hate me? To see the light die in your eyes every time I pulled away? To lie in bed next to you, wanting so desperately to tell you everything, but knowing that once I did, I couldn't protect you anymore. Protect me from what? Anna stepped even closer, close enough that he could see the mascara smudges under her eyes. From loving you, from being there for you, from having the chance to fight this battle together, from watching another person you love die. The words exploded from him, raw and desperate. I saw what happened after your parents' accident, after your brother's overdose. I watched you piece yourself back together, and I couldn't be another name on that list, another person who left you alone. The silence that followed was deafening. Around them, the city continued its endless symphony, distant sirens, the rumble of traffic, the whisper of leaves in the park's trees. But between them, there was only the weight of his confession. Anna reached up, her hand hovering near his face, before dropping back to her side. You're right, she said finally. I've lost too many people. My parents never got to see me graduate law school. My brother never met the man I married. Every important moment in my life has been marked by absence. She took a shuddering breath. But you know what's worse than losing people? Having them choose to leave you? The truth of her words hit him like a physical blow. In trying to protect her from pain, he'd inflicted a deeper wound, the betrayal of choice. The night my brother died, Anna continued, her voice barely above a whisper, I promised myself I'd never let anyone else make me feel that helpless. That's why I became a lawyer, why I fight so hard for my clients, because everyone deserves the chance to choose their own path, even if it leads to heartbreak. She stepped back, shrugging off his jacket and holding it out to him. But you took that choice away from me, Ben. You decided I wasn't strong enough to handle your illness. You made all the decisions about our future without even giving me a voice. Benjamin didn't take the jacket. Instead, he gently wrapped it back around her shoulders, letting his hands linger there. You're right, he said softly. I was wrong. So wrong. I thought I was being strong, but I was just being a coward. Yes, you were. But she didn't pull away from his touch. And now what? We're standing here with divorce papers waiting to be signed, and suddenly I find out that my husband isn't just leaving me. He's sick. He's been fighting alone, and he thought the best solution was to make me hate him. I don't know, he admitted. I didn't plan for this. I thought if we had one last night together, I could at least give you the truth before letting you go. But standing here now, he trailed off, overwhelmed by everything he wanted to say. Anna looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. Before letting me go, Ben, did it ever occur to you that maybe I don't want to be let go, that maybe I'm strong enough to handle whatever comes next? Even if what comes next is watching me fight a battle I might not win. especially then. She reached up, finally touching his face, her fingers tracing the worry lines that hadn't been there a year ago. Because that's what real love is, not protecting each other from pain, but facing it together, standing in the storm and refusing to let go. Benjamin leaned into her touch, feeling the walls he'd built crumbling completely. "I'm scared," he whispered, words he hadn't allowed himself to say in 18 months. "Not of dying, but of leaving you alone." "Then stop trying to leave." Anna's voice was fierce now. "Stop pushing me away. Stop making decisions for both of us. Let me choose, Ben. Let me choose you, illness and all." The park had emptied around them, leaving them alone with their truths and possibilities. Somewhere in the distance, a clock struck midnight, marking the transition from one day to the next, from their past to whatever future they might build from these broken pieces. "What happens now?" Benjamin asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. Anna took his hand, lacing their fingers together like they used to do. "Now," she said, "we go somewhere, and you tell me everything. Every doctor's appointment, every treatment, every fear you've been carrying alone. No more secrets, no more protection, no more decisions made in isolation." She squeezed his hand. "And then we figure out our next steps. Together." As they walked out of the park, still holding hands, Benjamin felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in months. Hope. Not the desperate hope of his solo hospital visits, but the steady, shared hope of two people facing an uncertain future with their hearts finally open. They ended up at Riverside Park, sitting on a secluded bench overlooking the Hudson River. Their takeout containers from Le Bernardin sat unopened between them, a reminder of the dinner that had changed everything. The water stretched before them, dark and endless, its surface catching fragments of moonlight and city glow. "Start from the beginning," Anna said softly, still wearing his jacket. "I want to know everything." Benjamin pulled out his phone, opening a calendar app he'd kept hidden in a folder. "September 15th, he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "That's when the headaches started. Not the normal kind. These felt different, like pressure building behind my eyes." Anna shifted closer, her shoulder touching his. "The day you cancelled our anniversary dinner. I had my first seizure that afternoon. Small one in my office bathroom. Managed to convince everyone it was just exhaustion." He scrolled through the calendar entries, each one a marker of his secret battle. "By October, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The dizziness was getting worse. I'd lose chunks of time, find myself staring at documents with no memory of reading them." "The Callahan case," Anna breathed. "You withdrew from it suddenly, said it was a conflict of interest." Benjamin nodded. "I couldn't trust myself in court anymore, not with the symptoms getting worse." He paused, gathering strength for what came next. "The first MRI was on October 12th. That's when they found the tumor." Anna's hand found his, gripping it tightly. "Show me." He hesitated only a moment before pulling up the medical images on his phone. The tumor appeared as a ghostly white mass against the grey matter of his brain, its edges irregular and threatening. He felt Anna's sharp intake of breath but continued speaking. "Grade 3 astrocytoma. Aggressive but not immediately terminal. Dr. Chen, my oncologist, she said we caught it relatively early. Started treatment right away. Radiation first, then chemotherapy." "All those business trips to Boston," Anna whispered. "The conferences in Chicago. Treatment centers, different specialists, second opinions." He showed her more images, documentation of his secret war. "The first round? Didn't work as well as we'd hoped. The tumor was stubborn, resistant to traditional approaches." Anna's free hand traced the dates on his phone screen. "December 27th, she read. "What happened then?" Benjamin's throat tightened. "I lost feeling in my right hand during a partner meeting. Couldn't hold my pen. That's when Dr. Chen suggested we try an experimental treatment protocol." He turned to look at her directly. "It meant more aggressive therapy, longer hospital stays. I knew I couldn't hide it much longer, but by then..." "By then you'd already pushed me so far away." Anna's voice cracked slightly. "God, Ben, Remember that week? You barely spoke 3 words to me. Started sleeping in the guest room, claiming you had early meetings. I was throwing up blood, he admitted quietly. The treatment was brutal. I didn't want you to see me like that. Instead, you let me think you couldn't stand to be near me anymore. She pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. A few steps took her to the river's edge, where she stood hugging herself against the night air. Do you know what that did to me? Thinking my husband couldn't even bear to share a bed with me. Benjamin watched her silhouette against the water, remembering all the nights he'd lain awake in the guest room, listening to her move around their bedroom. How many times had she cried alone, thinking he didn't care? The worst part, she continued, not turning around, is that I would have understood. All those symptoms, the appointments, the treatments, I would have been there. I would have held your hand through every second of it. That's exactly why I couldn't tell you. He joined her at the railing, keeping a careful distance. You would have put your whole life on hold. Given up cases, missed opportunities. Your career was finally taking off. My career? Now she did turn, eyes flashing. You think I care more about my career than about you? I think you fought too hard to get where you are. The first black woman made partner at Richardson and Mueller in 20 years. The pro bono program you built from scratch. I saw how much it meant to you, how much good you were doing. And you thought I couldn't handle both? Being a good lawyer and a supportive wife? I thought you shouldn't have to. The words came out more forcefully than he intended. You've spent your whole life being strong for everyone else. Your parents died, and you raised your brother. He died, and you channeled that pain into helping others. Every time life knocked you down, you got back up fighting harder. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. For once, I wanted to protect you from having to be strong. Anna was quiet for a long moment, studying his face in the dim light. Finally, she asked, "What does the latest scan show?" The question caught him off guard. What? The experimental treatment, is it working? Benjamin reached for his phone again, pulling up the most recent images. See this area here? He pointed to where the white mass had shrunk noticeably. It's responding. Slowly but definitely responding. Dr. Chen says if this continues what? He swallowed hard. There's a chance. A real chance. But it's not. Certain, Anna. Nothing about this is certain. She took the phone from him, zooming in on the image with careful precision, her lawyer's eyes trained to find details others might miss. When's your next appointment? Thursday, 9 a.m. at Memorial Sloan. I'm coming with you. Anna? No. She cut him off firmly. This isn't a discussion. If you want any chance of saving our marriage, if you meant anything you said about honesty tonight, then I'm coming with you. I want to hear everything directly from Dr. Chen. Every option, every risk, every possibility. She handed back his phone. No more secrets, no more protection, no more decisions made alone. That's my condition. Benjamin stared at her, this woman who had somehow found the strength to forgive him, even as she demanded accountability, who was willing to face an uncertain future with him, despite his betrayal of her trust. Okay, he whispered. Okay. She raised an eyebrow. Just like that. Just like that. He gestured to their forgotten takeout containers. Although maybe we should eat something first. Can't battle cancer on an empty stomach. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Was that a joke about your illness? Already? Too soon? Way too soon. But she was moving back toward the bench, reaching for the containers. But I am starving, and you... She poked his chest gently. You need to keep your strength up. Doctor's orders? Doctor's orders, he confirmed, following her lead. As they settled back onto the bench, sharing lukewarm fish and trading bites of each other's dishes like they used to do, Benjamin felt something shift between them. Not forgiveness exactly. That would take time and work, and probably more than a few tears, but understanding maybe, a foundation they could build on if they were brave enough to try. Tell me about Dr. Chen, Anna said between bites. What's she like? And so Benjamin did, describing the oncologist's quiet confidence, her dry sense of humor, the way she never sugarcoated anything, but also never left room for despair. As he talked, Anna asked questions, sharp, precise questions that reminded him she was one of the best cross-examiners in the city. She was already fighting for him, he realized, already preparing for battle. Maybe that's what love really was, not protecting someone from pain, but giving them the chance to fight alongside you. Not hiding your weakness, but trusting someone else to be strong when you couldn't be. The moon had risen higher over the river, casting a silver path across the water. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, doctor's appointments to face together, trust to rebuild, a marriage to heal. But for now, sharing a meal and trading truths under the stars, they were finding their way back to each other. One honest moment at a time. The walk back to their brownstone, technically still their shared home though Benjamin had been staying at a hotel for the past month, felt both familiar and strange. The neighborhood was quiet at this hour, their footsteps echoing off historic facades. Anna still wore his jacket, and Benjamin couldn't help noticing how she'd slipped her hands into the pockets, a gesture so achingly familiar it made his chest hurt. "We should talk about tomorrow," she said, as they approached their front steps. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Tomorrow, when they were supposed to sign divorce papers, when everything was supposed to end. Benjamin paused at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at the home they'd bought together 6 years ago. The window boxes Anna had planted with autumn chrysanthemums still bloomed, though he noticed they needed water. Another detail he'd failed to maintain in his absence. "I'll call my lawyer first thing," he said. "Cancel the appointment." Anna shook her head, climbing the steps to unlock the door. "No, we go." "What?" He followed her up, confused. "But I thought—" "We go," she repeated, pushing open the heavy wooden door. "And we tell them we're postponing. Not cancelling. Postponing until we figure this out." She stepped into the foyer, immediately slipping off her heels, a habit from years of coming home together. "Because if we're doing this, Ben, we're doing it right. No rush decisions, no easy fixes." The house smelled exactly as he remembered, a mix of Anna's essential oil diffuser and the old wood that had witnessed their happiest moments. Watched as she moved through the space, turning on lamps, bringing warmth to rooms that had felt cold in their separation. "Define doing it right," he said carefully, following her into the kitchen. Anna filled the electric kettle. Another. Routine so familiar it hurt, before turning to face him. "First we get through Thursday's appointment. Together. I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with, medically speaking." She pulled 2 mugs from the cabinet, his favorite blue one with the chip on the handle, and her own that read, "Well-behaved women rarely make history." The sight of them, these everyday objects that had been part of countless morning conversations, made something twist in Benjamin's stomach. "And then," he prompted, "then we talked to Dr. Chen about your treatment options. All of them." She measured loose tea into infusers, chamomile for her, Earl Grey for him, even now remembering his preferences. "After that we find a therapist, someone who specializes in couples dealing with serious illness." Benjamin leaned against the counter, watching her methodical movements. "You've thought about this?" "I've had 2 hours to process the fact that my husband has brain cancer and chose to divorce me rather than let me help him fight it." The words were sharp, but her hands remained steady as she poured hot water over the tea. "So yes, I've thought about this." She handed him his mug, the warmth seeping through to his palms. For a moment they stood in silence, the familiar kitchen suddenly feeling like neutral ground in a war neither of them had wanted to fight. "I have conditions," Anna continued finally. "Non-negotiable ones. Name them." "Complete medical. Transparency. I want access to all your records, all your appointments. I want to be listed as your medical proxy again." She took a sip of her tea, eyes never leaving his face. "And you start sleeping at home again tonight." Benjamin's grip tightened on his mug. "Anna, the guest room is fine," she added quickly. We're not ready for more than that, but I need to know you're here. I need to know if you have a seizure or a bad reaction to the treatment, I'll be able to help." The practicality of her thinking, even in the midst of emotional chaos, reminded him of why he'd fallen in love with her in the first place. "What about work?" he asked. "Your cases?" "I'll talk to the partners tomorrow. Richardson loves me. She'll understand if I need to adjust my schedule." Anna set down her mug with careful precision. And before you protest about my career, again remember that this is my choice, my life, my husband. The possessive pronoun hit him hard. My husband. After months of trying to distance himself, of trying to make their separation easier, those two words broke something loose in his chest. I don't deserve this, he whispered. Any of it. Your forgiveness, your help. This isn't about what you deserve. Anna moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume mixing with the chamomile steam. This is about what I choose, and I choose us. I choose fighting this together, even if you're too stubborn to admit you need me. I do need you. The confession felt like letting go of a weight he'd carried for too long. God, Anna, I need you so much it terrifies me. She reached up, touching his face with gentle fingers. Then let me be there, let me be scared with you. Let me hold your hand through the bad days and celebrate the good ones. Let me be your wife again. Benjamin leaned into her touch, feeling tears threaten for the first time since his diagnosis. What if I can't beat this? Then we face that together too. Her voice was firm, despite the tremor in her hand. But first we fight. With everything we have, we fight. The kitchen clock ticked softly, marking moments that suddenly felt precious rather than painful. Outside, a car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating the room through the window. In that flash of light, Benjamin saw the tears on Anna's cheeks, matching his own. Okay, he said softly, setting down his mug. Okay. Okay, what? Okay. To all of it. The appointments, the therapy, moving back home. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. I'm done fighting alone. Anna squeezed his hand, a gesture that held both forgiveness and warning. Promise me something. Anything. No more noble sacrifices. No more protecting me from the truth. She stepped closer, until they were sharing the same breath. Promise me that whatever comes next, we face it as equals, as partners. I promise. And for the first time in 18 months, he felt like he could actually keep his word. She nodded once, decisively, then pulled away. Good. Now go get your things from the hotel. I'll make up the guest room. Now it's after midnight. Yes, now. She was already moving toward the linen closet, all business despite the emotional weight of the moment. Because tomorrow is going to be hard enough without adding a hotel checkout to the mix. And because... She paused, vulnerability creeping into her voice. Because I need to know you'll be here when I wake up. That this wasn't just another dream where you come home. The admission hit him like a physical blow. How many mornings had she woken up alone, hoping he'd returned? How many dreams had tortured her with false reconciliations? I'll be quick, he promised, already reaching for his keys. 20 minutes, tops. The spare key is still under the lotus plant, she called after him, in case I'm upstairs when you get back. Benjamin paused at the door, looking back at their kitchen, at Anna moving through it with purpose, at the 2 mugs of cooling tea, at all the pieces of their life together that he'd almost thrown away. I love you, he said softly. Not sure if she could even hear him, but she did, she always did. I love you too, she replied, not turning around. Now go get your things and come home. As he stepped out into the night, Benjamin felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Possibility. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Postponed divorce appointments, medical consultations, difficult conversations with colleagues, and family. But for the first time since his diagnosis, he didn't have to face those challenges alone. The night air felt cleaner somehow, fresher. Above him, stars peeked through the city's light pollution, reminding him of all the summer evenings he and Anna had spent on their rooftop garden, planning futures that had seemed limitless then. Maybe they still could be, just different, adjusted, but no less filled with love. He quickened his steps toward the hotel, eager to return home, not just to the house, but to the woman who had chosen to fight for him, even when he'd stopped, fighting for himself. Dawn crept through the guest room blinds, painting stripes across Benjamin's ceiling. He'd barely slept, too aware of Anna's presence down the hall, too conscious of being back in their home. His few belongings from the hotel looked out of place against the room's familiar walls, a visual reminder of how much had changed in 24 hours. The sound of the shower running filtered through the walls, followed by the quiet squeak of pipes that had always needed fixing. Anna's morning routine, as predictable as sunrise. He glanced at his phone, 6:45 a.m. She'd be heading to the office early, probably to rearrange her schedule before their appointment with the divorce lawyers. He pushed himself up, fighting a wave of dizziness, a common morning symptom he'd learned to hide. But now, with Anna just down the hall hiding, felt like betrayal. Grabbing his phone, he opened their shared calendar app, unused for months, and created a new entry. Morning dizziness, moderate. The shower stopped. A few minutes later, soft footsteps passed his door, pausing briefly before continuing downstairs. Benjamin dressed carefully, choosing a light grey suit that Anna had always liked. His hands shook slightly as he knotted his tie, and he documented that too. Fine motor control issues, mild. The kitchen smelled of coffee when he finally made his way down. Anna stood at the counter in her charcoal pencil skirt and cream blouse, hair still damp, scanning emails on her tablet. She looked up when he entered, her expression a complex mix of emotions he couldn't quite read. "I saw your calendar entries," she said, pushing a mug of coffee toward him. "Thank you." Benjamin accepted the coffee, noting she'd made it exactly as he liked. 1 sugar, splash of cream. "Trying to keep my promises. How bad is the dizziness?" "Manageable. It usually passes by mid-morning." He took a careful sip. "The medication schedule helps. Speaking of which..." He pulled a small pill organizer from his pocket, setting it on the counter. Anna watched as he took his morning doses, her lawyer's eyes missing nothing. "Side effects?" "Nausea sometimes. Fatigue." He managed a small smile. "But the coffee helps." She nodded, then turned to pull something from the oven, a breakfast casserole still warm. "You need to eat with those meds, and don't give me that look. I stress cook, you know that." The domesticity of the moment struck him hard. Anna in their kitchen, cooking him breakfast, worrying about his medication, everything he'd denied them both for months out of misguided protection. "Richardson's office opens at 8, Anna said, plating the casserole. "I'll call them first, explain we need to postpone today's meeting." "Let me do it." Benjamin sat at their kitchen island, where they'd shared countless meals before everything fell apart. "I'm the one who started this. I should be the one to..." "Stop it." Anna paused in her efficient morning movements. "You're sure?" "Yes, but..." He pushed his food around his plate. "What do we tell people about why we're postponing?" She leaned against the counter, studying him. "That's up to you. We don't owe anyone explanations right now. The firm should know about my condition." He forced himself to meet her eyes. "I've been hiding it from them too. Using vacation days for treatments, working from home on bad days." "Okay." Anna's tone was gentle but firm. "Then we tell them. Together. After Thursday's appointment with Dr. Chen, when we have a clear picture of the treatment plan." The way she said "we," so natural, so certain, made his throat tight. "The partners might want me to step back, take medical leave. Then you take it." She moved around the island to stand beside him. "Your health comes first. Everything else is negotiable." Benjamin pushed his plate away, suddenly overwhelmed. "How are you so calm about all this? Last night you were ready to tear me apart. Rightfully so. And now you're making me breakfast and talking about treatment plans like... Like what? Like I'm your wife?" Anna's voice held an edge now. "I'm not calm, Ben. I'm terrified. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I'm also a woman who's learned that falling apart is a luxury we can't always afford." She pulled out the stool next to him, sitting close enough that their knees touched. "You want to know what I did at 5 this morning when I couldn't sleep? I researched every clinical trial for astrocytoma at Sloan Kettering. I read patient forums. I made lists of questions for Dr. Chen because that's how I cope. I plan, I prepare, I fight." The admission cracked something in Benjamin's careful composure. "I've missed you," he whispered. "God, I've missed you so much." Anna's hand found his, warm and steady. "I'm right here. I've always been right here." The morning sun streamed through their kitchen windows, catching the gold undertones in Anna's skin, highlighting the faint worry lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. Lines he'd helped create with his silence. "We should head out soon," she said, squeezing his hand before letting go. "The lawyer's office opens at 9. Benjamin nodded, reaching for his phone. "I'll call now. Better not to wait." Anna stood, gathering her things with practiced efficiency. "I'll change my afternoon schedule, move some meetings around. Text me when you're done with the call." "Actually," he hesitated, "would you stay while I make it?" The vulnerability in his request hung between them. After months of pushing her away, asking her to stay felt like learning a new language. "Of course." She settled back onto her stool, close but not touching, offering support while respecting the new boundaries they were still learning to navigate. Benjamin dialed his lawyer's number, watching the morning light paint patterns on their kitchen wall. The same wall where they'd once talked about painting a mural, making plans for a future that had seemed so certain then. Maybe they still could, he thought. Different plans, adjusted dreams, but dreams nonetheless. The call connected, and Benjamin felt Anna's presence beside him like an anchor as he began to speak. "Richard, it's Benjamin Walsh about today's appointment." He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of months of deception finally lifting. "We need to postpone. My wife and we have some things to figure out first." As he spoke, Anna's hand found his again under the counter, her fingers intertwining with his. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding, support, love. Maybe that was enough for now. Enough to build on, enough to fight for, enough to hope. The morning stretched ahead of them, full of difficult conversations and uncertain outcomes. But for the first time in 18 months, Benjamin didn't feel alone. In their sun-filled kitchen, with Anna's hand in his and the taste of her coffee on his lips, he felt something that had been missing since his diagnosis. Home. He felt home. The law firm's conference room felt smaller than Benjamin remembered, despite its wall of windows overlooking Manhattan. Or maybe it was just the weight of what they were about to do that made the space feel confined. Anna sat beside him, her legal pad covered in her precise handwriting, talking points they'd practiced over breakfast. Across the mahogany table, Richard Coleman, the managing partner, studied them both with careful consideration. At 72, he'd been a mentor to Benjamin since his first day at the firm, making this conversation even harder. "Let me make sure I understand," Richard said, his voice measured. "You're not only postponing your divorce, but also informing us of a serious medical condition that you've been hiding for over a year." "Yes," Benjamin replied, feeling Anna's hand squeeze his knee under the table. "I was diagnosed with a grade 3 astrocytoma last October. I've been receiving treatment at Memorial Sloan Kettering, using vacation time and working remotely when possible." Richard removed his reading glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. "And now? Now we're exploring new treatment options," Anna interjected, her professional tone masking the emotion Benjamin could feel radiating from her. "Benjamin has an appointment tomorrow with his oncologist to discuss next steps. We'll have a clearer picture of the timeline then." "Timeline," Richard tested the word. "For recovery or for everything," Benjamin said firmly. "Treatment, potential medical leave, case redistribution if necessary. We want to be completely transparent moving forward." The older lawyer nodded slowly, then surprised them both by smiling. "Well, it's about damn time." "I'm sorry?" Benjamin blinked. "Son, I've known you for 15 years. Did you really think I wouldn't notice something was wrong?" Richard leaned forward, his expression softening. "The missed meetings, the sudden case withdrawals, the way you'd disappear for hours without explanation. I've been waiting for you to come clean." Anna's hand tightened on Benjamin's knee. "You knew?" "I suspected illness, yes, though I didn't know the specifics." Richard's gaze shifted between them. "What I couldn't understand was why you were pushing away the one person who could help you through it." The gentle rebuke hit Benjamin hard. "I thought I was protecting her. By breaking her heart." Richard shook his head. "I watched both of you suffering, knowing it wasn't my place to intervene. But I'll tell you what I told my own son when He faced cancer 5 years ago. Isolation is not protection. It's fear wearing a noble mask. Your son, Anna said softly. I didn't know. He's in remission now. Richard stood, moving to a cabinet in the corner. But those first months, watching him push away his wife, his kids, it was like watching history repeat itself. I did the same thing when I got my diagnosis 20 years ago. He returned with a bottle of water for each of them, the gesture oddly paternal. The difference is my wife wouldn't let me. She fought back, just like you're doing now, Anna. Benjamin felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I've made a mess of everything. No, Richard corrected. You made a human mistake. Now you're fixing it. He turned to his computer, typing briefly. I'm clearing your schedule for the next 2 weeks. We'll reassess after you meet with your doctor. Richard, I can't ask. You're not asking, I'm telling. The older man's tone brooked no argument. Take the time you need. Your cases will be here when you're ready. He looked at Anna. And I'm copying Richardson on this email. She'll understand if you need flexibility with your schedule. Anna nodded, her professional composure cracking slightly. Thank you. Don't thank me, just... Richard's voice softened. Fight this together. The firm will support you both, but your priority now is healing. Not just physically, but... He gestured between them. Everything. As they left Richard's office 30 minutes later, Benjamin felt lighter despite the weight of the conversation. In the elevator, Anna leaned against him slightly. One down, she murmured. Ready for the next? Benjamin checked his watch. They had a lunch meeting scheduled with his younger sister, Claire, who'd been his fiercest critic during the separation. No, but we'll do it anyway. The drive to Claire's favorite bistro in Greenwich Village gave them time to prepare. Hannah reviewed their talking points again, her lawyer's instinct for preparation extending to personal conversations now. Let me take the lead with Claire, she said, watching the city pass outside her window. She's been protective of you since this started, probably because she blamed me for the separation. She didn't know the truth either, Benjamin reminded her. No one did. Still, Anna's voice held a hint of old pain. Some of the things she said were wrong. Benjamin caught her hand across the console. And she'll understand that now. The bistro was busy with the lunch crowd when they arrived, but Claire was already waiting at their usual corner table. Her eyes widened seeing them arrive together, then narrowed as she took in their clasped hands. Well, she said as they sat down, this is unexpected. Claire, Benjamin started, but Anna squeezed his hand. We need to tell you something, Anna said quietly. And we need you to just listen first, okay? Claire's gaze darted between them, the protective sister warring with the confusion clear on her face. So I'm listening, and so they told her together, about the diagnosis, the treatments, the fear that had driven Benjamin's decisions, about their reconciliation, their plans to fight together, their postponed divorce. Through it all, Claire sat, silent, her untouched water glass leaving rings on the tablecloth. When they finished, she stood abruptly. For a moment, Benjamin thought she was leaving. Instead, she walked around the table and pulled him into a fierce hug. You idiotic, noble, frustrating... She was crying now, her words muffled against his shoulder. Why didn't you tell me? Same reason he didn't tell any of us, Anna said softly. He thought he was protecting everyone. Claire pulled back, wiping her eyes, then surprised them both by hugging Anna just as fiercely. I'm so sorry, she whispered. The things I said to you about you, I thought you'd given up on him. Never. Anna's voice cracked. I just didn't know what I was fighting against. They spent the next hour planning, Claire insisting, on being added to medical update lists, offering to help coordinate with family, making lists of people who needed to know and how to tell them. Her natural organizing skills, so like Benjamin's, channeled into action. Mom and Dad? She asked finally, as their plates were cleared. Benjamin tensed. Their parents, recently retired to Florida, had been devastated by news of the divorce. We'll video call them tonight. They should hear it from us directly. I'll be there, Claire said immediately. Not for the call, but after. You shouldn't be alone. They won't be, Anna assured her. and Benjamin heard the double meaning in her words. None of them would be alone in this fight anymore. As they left the restaurant, Claire hugged them both again. "Promise me something?" "What?" "No more secrets." She looked at Benjamin pointedly. "In this family, we face things together, even the scary things, especially the scary things." On the drive home, Benjamin glanced at Anna, who'd been quiet since they left. "You okay?" "Just thinking." She was making notes again, her legal pad balanced on her knees. "We still need to tell my aunt in Chicago, and your team at the office. And my assistant, she's been covering for me all morning." "Hey," Benjamin caught her hand, stilling her nervous writing. "We don't have to do everything today." "I know, I just—" She looked up at him, vulnerability replacing her efficient facade. "I don't want to waste any more time, not when we've already lost so much." "We haven't lost it," he said softly. "We just took a detour, but we're finding our way back." The afternoon sun caught her wedding ring as she squeezed his hand, the ring she'd never taken off, even when signing divorce papers seemed inevitable. Maybe that should have been his first clue, he thought, that even when he was pushing her away, some part of her had held on, believing in them even when he couldn't. They had more calls to make, more conversations to face. Tomorrow would bring medical discussions and decisions. But for now, driving through their city with their truth finally in the open, Benjamin felt something he'd thought he'd lost forever. Hope, not just for survival, but for a future worth fighting for. Memorial. Sloane Kettering's waiting room hadn't changed, but experiencing it with Anna made it feel entirely different. She sat beside him reviewing her notepad, 3 pages of questions written in her precise handwriting, categorized by priority, the lawyer in her preparing for the most important deposition of her life. "Mrs. Walsh?" The nurse's use of her married name made them both look up. "Dr. Chen is ready for you." Benjamin felt Anna's hand slip into his as they followed the nurse down the familiar corridor. The walls were lined with abstract art in soothing blues and greens, art he'd stared at countless times alone, trying to find patterns in the shapes, while waiting for news. Dr. Chen stood as they entered her office, her keen eyes taking in their clasped hands. "Benjamin," she said warmly, then turned to Anna. "And you must be the wife I've heard so much about." "Though we should have met months ago," Anna replied, her tone professional but pointed. The oncologist's smile held understanding. "Yes, we should have, but we're here now." She gestured to the chairs facing her desk. "Shall we discuss where we are and where we're going?" Benjamin watched as Dr. Chen pulled up his latest scans, explaining them to Anna with the same patience she'd shown him months ago, the tumor's location, its response to treatment, the promising results of the experimental protocol. "As you can see," she pointed to a specific area, "we've achieved a 30% reduction in tumor size since starting the new treatment. The surrounding inflammation has also decreased significantly." Anna leaned forward, her grip on Benjamin's hand tightening. "And the prognosis?" "With continued response to treatment, we're looking at a significantly improved outlook." Dr. Chen's voice held cautious optimism. "The 5-year survival rate for grade 3 astrocytoma is typically around 58%, but given Benjamin's age, overall health, and his response to treatment, we have reason to be more optimistic." "Numbers," Anna said quietly. "I need specific numbers." The doctor nodded, understanding the lawyer's need for precision. "Based on current data, I'd put his chances at 75–80% for 5-year survival, possibly higher if we maintain this response rate." Benjamin felt a tremor run through Anna's hand into his. "And quality of life during treatment? That's where we need to make some decisions." Dr. Chen pulled out a treatment calendar. "The current protocol is working, but it's aggressive. Side effects include fatigue, nausea, potential cognitive impacts. We need to discuss work arrangements, support systems, lifestyle modifications." "I'm taking medical leave," Benjamin said firmly, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "We've already spoken with the firm." Dr. Chen smiled. "Good. That will help. Now let's talk about the next 3 months." For the next hour, they discussed everything. Medication schedules, dietary requirements, physical therapy to maintain strength, cognitive exercises to monitor any treatment impacts. Anna took notes continuously, asking precise questions about each aspect. "One more thing," she said as Dr. Chen finished outlining the treatment plan. "We're postponing our divorce. How should we plan for the future? Can we—" She paused, vulnerability creeping into her professional demeanor. "Can we think about building a life together?" The doctor's expression softened. "Benjamin's treatment will be intensive, and the road ahead isn't easy. But people build lives around harder things than this every day. The key is realistic expectations and strong support systems." "Which I didn't have before," Benjamin added quietly, "because I wouldn't let myself have them." "And now?" Dr. Chen asked. He looked at Anna, at the determination in her eyes, at the pages of notes she'd taken, at the wedding ring that caught the office's fluorescent light. "Now I'm not fighting alone." After scheduling their next appointment and collecting prescriptions and information packets, they walked to the hospital's courtyard. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves from the nearby trees. 75 to 80%, Anna said softly, sitting on a bench. "Those are better odds than we had of making it through law school." Benjamin sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth. "Are you sure about this, about all of it? Once we start telling people we're staying together, once you take time off work to help with treatment—" "Stop." She turned to face him fully. "Do you remember what you said in your vows, the ones you wrote yourself?" "Every word." "Tell me." Benjamin closed his eyes, the memory washing over him. "I said that love isn't just about the good days. It's about choosing each other again and again, especially when the choice is hardest. About building something stronger than fear or doubt or uncertainty." "And what did I say back?" "That you chose me not despite my flaws, but because of how I faced them. That you'd rather face life's storms with me than have perfect weather with anyone else." Anna's hand found his face, turning it toward her. "I meant those words then. And I mean them now. This storm, this fight, it's ours together. Even with only 75%. Even with 1%. Her voice was fierce now. "Because here's what you never understood, Ben. When I lost my parents, when I lost my brother, I didn't just lose them, I lost my witness. The people who knew my whole story, who could look at me and see every version of myself I'd ever been." She brushed away tears he hadn't realized were falling. "You gave that back to me. You became my witness, my partner, my home. So don't you dare ask me if I'm sure about fighting for us. I've never been more sure of anything." A fallen leaf landed on their joined hands, red and gold against their intertwined fingers. Around them, hospital staff and patients moved, through the courtyard, each carrying their own battles, their own hopes. "Dr. Chen will want to do another MRI next week," Benjamin said finally, "to establish a new baseline for treatment." "I know. It's already in my calendar." Anna pulled out her phone, showing him the color-coded schedule she'd created. "Along with your medication times, therapy appointments, and—" She smiled slightly. "Date nights." "Date nights. Every Saturday, even if it's just takeout. And movies in bed. We're fighting for our future, Ben, not just your health. That means we need to keep building us while we fight this." The simple practicality of it, planning date nights alongside brain scans, made his chest tight with love and gratitude. "How did I ever think I could do this without you?" "You couldn't, that's the point." She stood, pulling him up with her. "Now come on. We have prescriptions to fill, meal plans to make, and a whole life to start rebuilding." As they walked to the car, Benjamin noticed how Anna matched her pace to his, unconsciously adjusting to his energy level. Just like she'd always done, in ways he'd never fully appreciated before. "Hey," he said, stopping her before she could open the car door. "I love you." She smiled, that full, radiant smile he'd fallen in love with years ago. "I love you, too, even when you're being an idiot about it." The drive home was quiet, both of them processing the morning's information, but it was a comfortable quiet, filled with shared purpose rather than the painful silences of the past year. They had 3 months of intensive treatment ahead, side effects to manage, hard days to face, challenges to overcome. But as they pulled up to their brownstone, Benjamin realized something profound. For the first time since his diagnosis, he was thinking in terms of future years, not borrowed time. Because now he had something worth fighting for. Not just survival, but a life rebuilt with the woman who'd chosen him again and again, even when he'd tried to take away her choice. 3 months after that night that changed everything, Benjamin stood in their rooftop garden, watching the sun set over Manhattan. The December air was crisp, carrying the promise of snow, but he barely felt the cold. His focus was on the tablet in his hands, displaying his latest scan results, the ones he and Anna would discuss with Dr. Chen tomorrow morning. The sound of the rooftop door opening made him turn. Anna emerged carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate, a familiar comfort ritual they'd rediscovered during his treatment. "I thought I'd find you up here," she said, handing him a mug. "Nervous about tomorrow?" "Actually, no." He set the tablet aside, accepting both the hot chocolate and her presence beside him. "For the first time, I'm just ready, whatever the results show." Anna studied his profile in the fading light. He'd lost weight during treatment, and fatigue had carved new lines around his eyes. But he stood straighter now, no longer carrying the weight of secrets. "You seem different today," she observed. "I feel different." Benjamin took a sip of his hot chocolate, letting the warmth spread through him. "I was thinking about that night, when you asked for one last night together. Did you know then that something was wrong beyond what I was telling you?" Anna leaned against the garden wall, her dark eyes thoughtful. "Not consciously, but I knew the man I married, knew he wouldn't just stop loving me without a reason." She smiled slightly. "That's why I asked for that night. I needed to see you, really see you, one more time. And instead you got all of me. The truth, the illness, the fear, the love," she added softly. "Don't forget that part." Benjamin set down his mug and pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. The past 3 months had been a journey of rediscovery, learning how to be together again, how to face challenges as partners rather than adversaries. Every treatment session, every difficult day, every small victory had brought them closer. "Claire called earlier," Anna said, her voice muffled against his chest. "She wanted to know if we're still on for Christmas dinner." "What did you tell her?" "That it depends on tomorrow's results." She pulled back to look at him. "But that either way we'll be there, together." The simple statement held worlds of meaning. They'd learned to plan for the future while honoring the uncertainty of their situation. Date nights had become sacred, even when they consisted of nothing more than holding each other through the after-effects of treatment. They'd moved back into their bedroom 2 weeks ago, the guest room returning to its original purpose. "I have something for you," Benjamin said, reaching into his pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment." He pulled out a small velvet box, not new but cherished. Anna's breath caught as she recognized it. "Your grandmother's ring box." "Open it." Inside lay 2 simple platinum bands, their original wedding rings, which they'd returned to their lawyers months ago during divorce preparations. "I picked them up last week," Benjamin explained. "Had them cleaned and resized. I thought—" He took a deep breath. "I thought maybe we could put them back on. Not as a continuation of our old marriage, but as a symbol of this new one we're building. If you want to." Anna's hands trembled slightly as she touched the rings. "You don't think it's too soon?" 3 months ago, you asked for one night, to say goodbye. Instead, you gave me a lifetime to say hello again." He lifted her chin gently. "I know we still have challenges ahead. Treatment to continue, hard days to face. But I also know that I want to face every single one of them as your husband. Properly this time. No secrets, no noble sacrifices, no holding back." Tears sparkled in Anna's eyes, catching the last rays of sunset. "Ask me properly, then." Benjamin took the smaller ring from the box, his heart pounding just as hard as it had 8 years ago in the Boston Public Garden. "Anna Richardson Walsh, will you marry me again? Not because of duty or illness or history, but because I love you more today than I did the first time I asked this question. Because you're the strongest, most beautiful soul I've ever known, and I want to spend whatever time we have left showing you exactly how much you mean to me." Anna held out her left hand, which hadn't worn a ring in months. "Yes," she whispered, today, tomorrow, and every day after. Yes. The ring slid onto her finger perfectly, catching the light of the emerging stars above them. She took the second ring with slightly shaking hands. "Benjamin Walsh," she said, her voice steady despite her tears. "Will you marry me again? Not out of obligation or guilt or fear, but because you're the love of my life. Because you've shown me that even our worst mistakes can lead to our greatest redemptions. Because I choose you in sickness and in health today and always." "Yes," he breathed as she slipped the ring onto his finger. "God, yes." Their kiss tasted of hot chocolate and tears and promises, not just the ones they'd spoken, but all, the ones that lay ahead. When they finally pulled apart, the city lights had come alive around them, a constellation of earthbound stars. "Whatever the scans show tomorrow," Anna said softly, "we face it together. No more running, no more hiding." "No more last nights," Benjamin added, holding her close against the December chill. "Only new beginnings." Above them snow began to fall, gentle flakes that melted as they touched the warm garden lights. Anna tilted her face up to feel them, laughing with a joy that made Benjamin's heart swell. They had chosen this, he realized. Not just tonight or tomorrow, but every day that would follow. Chosen to fight not just his illness, but for their love. Chosen to believe that even the darkest nights could lead to the brightest dawns. There, wedding rings caught the garden lights as Anna reached for his hand, leading him toward the door. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Medical results, treatment decisions, the continuous journey of healing both his body and their marriage. But tonight, in their rooftop garden where they'd shared so many dreams, they had chosen each other again. And that choice, Benjamin knew, was stronger than any fear, any illness, any uncertainty that lay ahead. It was, after all, just the beginning of their new story. The end. If you were in Anna's shoes, discovering that your partner had hidden a serious illness in order to protect you, would you be able to forgive and fight alongside them, or would the breach of trust be irreparable? In a relationship, to what extent does protecting someone become a form of abandonment? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.